Welcome aboard, applicants. Let's begin with General Bar Exam, October 2020, question number 4. As with all essay questions, let's begin with the call of the question. With what crime or crimes, if any, may Al reasonably be charged? What defenses, if any, may he reasonably assert? And what is the likely outcome? Discuss. 2. Under the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, on what basis, if any, may Don move to suppress evidence of Wanda's identification at the lineup? And what is the likely outcome? Discuss. Right now, we know we're going to probably deal with criminal procedure and criminal law. So with number 1, let's throw down our answer towards the question: crimes and defenses of Al ? And then we want to make sure to talk about State v. Al. And then number 2, we want to make sure to talk about under the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution, on what basis may Don move to suppress evidence of Wanda's identification at the lineup? Okay. Now we're going to bring this to the second page so we can all see it here. Now let's read the fact pattern. Needing money and willing to do anything to get it, Don, who was taller, and Al, who was short, set out for Vic's house around midnight to steal from him. On the way, right here we got 2 criminal defendants here, Don and Al. Right here and now, we should be instantly thinking of solicitation and conspiracy. So let's throw that down right now. Let me, thank you for your patience. Okay. Right down here. And remember, we also have our shopping list: murder, structure, theft, crimes against the person, solicitation, conspiracy, attempt, and defenses. Okay. Now, and for criminal procedure underneath this one, we want to make sure to talk about 5th. We're also going to be talking about identification, due process, exclusionary rule, and then that's it. Okay. Now, further coming down here. Okay, needing money and willing to do anything to get it. Don, who was tall, and Al, who was short, set out for Vic's house around midnight. Midnight. Hang on to that fact there. To steal from him. Steal from him. These are going to be very important facts later on. On the way, Al said that he did not want to get involved. Okay, so but Don slapped Al's face and responded, "If you don't come along now, I will break your legs tomorrow." Okay, so now, at this point, let's further read the paragraph. At Vic's house, Don opened the unlocked front door. So, opened, unlocked front door, and he and Al went inside here. These are gonna be important facts here in a minute. Don took a wallet on the table in the foyer, and he and Al ran away. So took the wallet and ran away right here. Okay, so let's issue spot this out. Okay, now we have the solicitation. We don't know who began it or instituted the solicitation, but someone must have. And then therefore the merger kicks in at that point. Solicitation merges with conspiracy upon the agreement of the conspiratorial objective. Now, make sure to talk about agreement here. Remember here, we just don't have an ordinary agreement. We have, I mean, we have an agreement, excuse me, but we have a implied agreement on the part of Al because he accompanied Dawn inside Vic's house, or I should say this: he entered Vic's house, went inside, and accompanied Dawn as not only took the wallet on the foyer on the table in the foyer, but he ran out with Dawn with the wallet. Okay. Now, so there's an agreement. There's Make sure to talk about the target crime, which we know here it was to we know the original target crime was in the first paragraph. It was larceny, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and then overt acts, which were the entering and leaving and carrying out the criminal objective. Don't forget to talk about co-conspiratorial liability. Nice way of saying that is the Pinkerton's rule. Okay, and so now after this though, we want to make sure to talk about the defense. That was when Don slapped Al in the face and told Al that, or first, this as a result of Al saying to Don that he did not want to get involved. At this point, I think we could argue that there's the first defense is withdrawal. And remember, we have the two laws in withdrawal: common law and modern law. Under the common law, the only thing required for withdrawal would be the renunciation through notification to the other co-conspirator that the other party does not want to carry out their criminal objective, but remember they're still liable for the original conspiracy. Under modern law, that would be the aspect concerning notification plus some kind of overt act and some kind of act to thwart the criminal objective, which did not take place here. So under the common law, Al might be able to escape liability for further criminal liability, but under the modern law, or he would still be liable for the conspiracy still, okay? But he would escape liability for further criminal acts. Under modern law, he would still be liable for the criminal act and further criminal for the conspiracy and further criminal acts. Okay. Now further along here, we definitely have the burglary that takes place. We also don't want to forget too that accompanying this withdrawal would be the defense of duress. Okay, the aspect that Al's free will decision was basically suspended because, or would say taken away from him because of the threat that Don made to him. That that not only did Don slap him in the face, but Don responded to Al, "If you don't come along right now, I'll break your legs." That would break your legs tomorrow. That aspect concerning the duress might render Al's decision making, the free will decision making, it would take that away from him. In other words, Al might try to argue that his going with Don was a result of that threat rather than a free will decision. Okay, now under burglary, remember, make sure we talk about the common law and modern law distinctions here. This is where we talk about up here under our opening, the midnight, the opening the unlocked door and going inside. Okay, those kinds of things, and the fact that it's Vic's house, those would all favor a common law burglary charge. Make sure that we also talk about larceny of what that'd be the wallet. Okay, and then make sure that after larceny, but remember, we don't want to go too far too soon because we want to make sure underneath. I remember right about here, we're going to want to put a accomplice liability as an aspect too, because the argument could be made that as a result of Al going with Don, that Al was technically an accomplice of the criminal objective because he aided and abetted or encouraged in the commission of crime with the intent that crime be committed. However, the argument can be made that his intent was not criminal because this is what Al's going to say, that as a result of the duress, he did not have a free will decision to accompany Dawn and do all the criminal activity that Dawn was engaging in inside of Vic's house concerning the wallet. Okay, so accomplice liability, the burglary, the larceny of the wallet, and then at this point we want to make sure that we throw in the defense that deals with the fact up here concerning the needing money and willing to do anything to get it. I would argue that we have the defense of necessity, financial necessity, but remember this is not a defense, so I just want to throw this out there. Not not a defense. Okay, now at this point we also want to make sure to put out a conclusion, wrap all this up. Okay, and then now underneath this here, make sure we're going through all this. We have we talked about there was no murder, we talked about the structure crimes, we talked about the theft crimes, we talked about the crime against the person crimes, solicitation, conspiracy, got that, attempt, and any defenses, we talked about that. So that seems like it's a full discussion here. Now underneath the second call, we want to make sure to talk about the Fifth Amendment. I want to make sure to talk specifically about the due process in terms of the identification. Now remember, under the identification, there we go. We want to make sure to bring out the fact that the 14th Amendment makes the Fifth Amendment applicable to the states. Okay, so 14th Amendment. We want to make sure to cite that, and we also want to make sure that we talk about this, that there was not the identification process was not unnecessarily suggestive. Okay, and technically would be unfair. Okay, underneath that. And then we want to make sure, and because we're dealing with the Fifth Amendment here, we want to make sure an identification procedure, a small discussion concerning right to counsel, Fifth Amendment right to counsel. But remember, when we'll talk about this, the fact that this was post indictment would defeat the right to counsel argument. But remember the due process and identification, the lineup. I should line up. We would talk about the 14th Amendment making the Fifth Amendment applicable to the states, whether or not the identification procedure was unnecessarily suggestive as to make the identification process unfair to the defendant. We also want to make sure to talk about exclusionary rule. The reason why I'm putting this down right now is it's important that we put all this down so that when we go through and fill these in with facts, that we're working from a good outline, a good structure. Exclusionary rule. Remember, we talked about on our exclusionary rule, we have to establish standing and whether or not there's any exceptions. The exceptions here would be inevitable discovery, and independent source. And purge taint. Sorry about that. And make sure at that point there is no other thing that we could talk about here. Make sure to talk about a conclusion as to all this. Okay. Okay. Now let's go through and finish out our reading. Now, Wanda, who happened to be in front of Vic's house at the time, caught sight of both men running out of the house. That night, again, big deal for our burglary charge. Wanda described the taller man as to the police as what? Oh, clean shaven with short hair. Very important aspect for identification in a lineup, but couldn't describe the shorter man. Okay. Don and Al were soon arrested. Okay, the next day, a newspaper printed a recent photo of Don showing him with a large beard and long hair. Okay, so this large beard and long hair, but is that consistent with what she saw on the night in question? Not really. But now, when Wanda saw the photo in the newspaper, she immediately went to the police station and told Officer Oliver. This is where I want to put Officer Oliver here. Okay. that she was concerned that Don might be the wrong man. Officer Oliver told Wanda that Don had Vic's wallet in his pocket when he was arrested. Before Don was arraigned. Before Don was arraigned. Very important fact here because that'll help down here. The right underneath the right to counsel before arraignment. Okay? Before arraignment, the right to counsel in the Fifth Amendment does not kick in. And because we're sticking with the Fifth Amendment here, that therefore the right to counsel would not be effective at this point. Now, Officer Oliver, Officer Oliver arranged for Wanda to view a lineup. Very important word here. I want to make sure to pay attention to. Of 6 bearded men with long hair, including Don. After viewing the lineup for 20 minutes. This is a very short period of time, by the way, but it's possible. Could be a reasonable period. Now, Wanda identified Don as one of the men she saw running out of the house. At trial, Al stipulated that he had ran out of Vic's house with Don. Okay. Now, the aspect concerning the large beard and long hair. Well, the night in question, she was the one that saw the clean shaven with short hair. So the whole aspect down here is concerning the unnecessarily suggestive would be the beard being lined up with bearded men, and we want to talk about long hair as well. Okay. Now the other thing is being unfair. This would be an aspect concerning like 20 minutes. The newspaper clipping, and just the quick lineup. Well, I should say that just the newspaper clipping, and I would say too that the suggestion by Officer Oliver that Officer Oliver told Wanda that Don had Vic's wallet in his pocket when he was arrested. Now, before Don was arraigned, Officer Oliver arranged for Wanda to view a lineup with 6 bearded men. This is the aspect concerning the lineup that the suggestion by Officer Oliver might have been considered unfair, which is definitely possible here. And if the due process in the identification of the lineup is not proper because of it not being consistent with due process, the exclusionary rule would kick in here. At this point, standing. The whole thing here is does Don have standing to exclude the statement made by, or the identification of the lineup by Wanda? Yes, because that's his identification. Now, the exception is inevitable discovery. Yeah, they could argue that inevitably they would discover that Don, was a clean-shaven, short-haired person, but also they might have an independent source that wasn't identified here, and then possible purge taint. I don't see any exceptions here excluding for the exclusionary rule. So I would argue that the identification would be excluded, and that would be my conclusion here. So okay, this is an excellent essay to stretch our wings concerning criminal law. I thank you so much for tuning in, and we're going to be having more of these. So stay tuned. Thank you, and God bless.